The most puzzling thing about this has been the fact that my favorite intellectual thinkers, the most logical people I look up to, people like Andrew Huberman, Jordan Peterson, and even Neil deGrasse Tyson, all have recently moved towards faith in God. Even Alex Hormozy, who doesn't even believe in God and he's publicly stated that, he always refers to biblical scripture when he's talking about how to deal with hardship in business. Now, looking at these people as my role models of intellectual thinking and logic really left a weird taste in my mouth because I didn't know what to think of it. I thought that the pursuit of truth and logic was the most, I don't know, noble thing to do, the most logical thing to do. And seeing them move to faith as like the crux and the basis of their actions in life really confused me, because what did that mean about how I should live my life if I want to be a more logical person? The odd thing about this experiment that I did with prayer is that I grew up loving listening to people with great debating skills, like the four horsemen of atheism: Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, these kind of people who would openly and very precisely debate on the existence of God and make it actually really seem like it was probably the most illogical thing that you could do in your life was to believe in a higher power. Now, I don't necessarily believe all those things anymore, but I also don't truly believe in God to such a heavy degree as well. I'm in this kind of like weird gray area. I don't even know what I should be doing, really. But what I've come to realize is that atheism gives me far more detriments than it gives me benefits. See, the thing is, when you look into these debates and you get that kind of like high and kick off of seeing these people debate the fact that, oh, if God exists, why would he give cancer to children? All these kind of things. And they have these witty remarks that would make the other person kind of quiver in their chair and don't know how to explain it, and just give them weird aphorisms and things like that. So I would get the high of watching these great debaters talk about these things. But the thing is that it never made me feel better about my decision. Yes, it kind of gave me that high, but I never felt like, yes, God doesn't exist. I feel like I can do so much with my life now. I never felt like that. I felt like the complete opposite. I felt more lonely in life. I felt like, what is the purpose of life if there is no God? And I realized the purpose in life is something that I have to design for myself. But at the same time, I would look to people who did have faith in God and they were so convinced that God had set them on this path and they had so much more content to deal with hardship that the world would throw at them, and they would refer to that hardship as a test or a challenge from God. And I thought, seeing all these people overcome this hardship, what do I have? I have to just realize that I just got unlucky in the universal lottery. I just kind of have to accept as an atheist that I'm alone in the journey of life. I don't have anything to look forward to after death. I don't know what death would be. That's fucking scary. I remember talking to a friend at a workplace one day, and I was really contemplating this. I was like, what benefits do you think atheism gives you? And he literally couldn't think of one. I would say, like, if I was being honest, I would say, like, it makes you a more critical thinker, you can use logic to a better degree, blah, blah, blah. But honestly, how has that helped me live a more fulfilling life? I can't really say it has. And at this point in my life, I can't say that I would ever believe in any one God, like Allah or the Christian God or Jesus. But the thing is, as I've looked towards the past and how people before us have dealt with the utter hardship of life. I mean, we think we have life hard in 2024, but back 100 years ago, 200 years ago, things were so much worse. Things were so much worse, and we take that for granted. And what I've seen from these people who write is that they need some sort of faith to help them through the hardship of life. And the way that I see it is that faith in religion is born out of the evolutionary necessity to have something to anchor belief onto in the face of hardship and in the face of uncertainty in life. So from key books like The Power of Now from Eckhart Tolle, which I read recently, and also Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, I realized that these books of people who have dealt with unhappiness and dealt with hardship, the one thing they do when all else fails is that they find God at the end. And I always thought of it as like this kind of placebo effect. It's like, I hear the story again and again of like, you tried this, I tried that, I tried all these scientific methods, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end, they're like, and what I did was I found God. and I prayed to God and I submitted to his will or whatever. And I always thought of that as some sort of placebo. And then I read a book called You Are the Placebo by Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he explains the placebo effect in such detail, and he uses science to record the effects of the placebo in people that he kind of like quote unquote heals with this effect. And in the most simple terms, the placebo is like taking a sugar pill for a headache and thinking that it works, or like just even the simple idea of like having lucky underwear that would make you do better at a certain sport or activity or whatever. But after thinking of these things in relation to each other, especially with all of these famous intellectuals who are moving towards Christ and the nature of the placebo effect, I was thinking, how logical is it to disregard the placebo effect? Because you know it's not quote unquote real, but you know there are tangible benefits to taking advantage of a placebo effect. So is it logical to disregard a placebo effect and say you shouldn't use this placebo effect? And I was like, yes, that's true. It's very logical to think that way. But what is the point of logic if it doesn't help you live your life in a better way? There's that whole thing of like when your girlfriend asks you if she looks fat in something, you don't tell her the logical answer because you know that you would rather have a good relationship than to logically tell her what is exactly on your mind. And you can take this idea to any other scenario. When your boss asks you if you enjoy your job, you don't tell them what you logically think. And so I was thinking, what has been the purpose of my logical atheism for my whole life? Is it the fact that it hasn't gotten me into some like weird cult? Okay, that's great. I'm not in a weird cult. I don't think I have to be a hardcore atheist not to get enlisted into a cult or do some like odd spiritual rituals or whatever. And honestly, I can say it's brought me so many more detriments than it has benefits. And I think a lot of atheists probably feel like this. You get into the high of looking at these debates, and then you kind of slowly fall into a spiral of getting more and more cynical, more and more, not necessarily depressed, but more and more sad about the outlook of the universe and life. And I'm not saying this is a natural path. There's probably a few people who can get into a positive move about the fact that there is no meaning or purpose in this universe and we're all just like floating on a rock as monkeys and that kind of idea. But I think those people are very few. I think the majority of atheists, from my own experience, and especially looking at the comment sections on these videos, is that they're cynical, they're pessimistic, and it doesn't help them, and it doesn't help the people around them. And when I think about what I want to actually have in life, do I want to use atheism to be a pessimistic, cynical thinker who just thinks that free will doesn't exist and that we're just a bunch of monkeys floating on the rock? But I also didn't think that I could like convince myself that a God existed. So in a way, I kind of just thought of God as a placebo effect. And that's probably why the modality I chose to experiment this with is prayer, because when I see people in prayer, or like when I imagine people in prayer, they look so relaxed, they look so focused, and it looks like they're, connecting with God, whatever that means. But it looks like a practice that gives you a lot of calm and content and probably builds a lot of perseverance in a person, where usually they will just fall into despair with whatever tragedy would happen to them. So there was one night where I sat on the front of the edge of my bed and I put my hands together like this in the dark, literally, and I just started to pray. And what happened was I just felt all the muscles in my body relax. And obviously, yeah, placebo, I would think that. But honestly, after that experience, it just felt so relaxing and so calming and so content. And just to be clear, I do a lot of meditation. So when you could usually think like, oh, you can just get that same result from meditation, this was completely different. And I'm sorry, but I don't know how to logically explain exactly why. But I knew I wanted to have that feeling more and more. So I decided that I would experiment with 30 days of prayer and just see how it went. And every time I did feel that feeling, I would admit that after the first 10 days, it felt all the same. But as it went on, it got less and less. And I guess I hedonically adapted to that feeling of that relaxation. And so when that time came, I decided that when I would pray, I would just think of gratitude. Because honestly, I consider myself a very lucky person. Everything that I've tried to do in my life, I have had pretty good success with it. And I felt like I never really deserved all the amazing things that I have in my life. I have really good parents, I have an amazing girlfriend, I have really good friends, like, I have a healthy body. There's so many things that are there for me to be grateful for. And I always thought, like, if there was a God, why was someone like me, quote unquote, blessed with all of this abundance? Whereas I would think if someone who was actually of faith in a worse circumstance than me, that would kind of be sad because I didn't ask for any of these things, whereas they would pray to God. And that always really confused me and made me feel like, in a way, weirdly guilty. I don't know. And honestly, with this video, my intention isn't try to get you to try your own prayer. I just need to share these thoughts of what I've been feeling because I think for a lot of atheists, it's really hard to get out of the spiral of that feeling of like, there's no purpose in life, there's no meaning, there's no God. And I honestly don't know the advice that would help you get out of that rut. I mean, there's Stoicism, there's probably Buddhism, which isn't really praying to a deity, I think. But from what I experience, I just know that atheism doesn't really give you the benefits of a fulfilling life. If your goal is to be more logical than you are fulfilled in life, then you do you. And if you are like a extremely positive and optimistic atheist, let me know how you guys, have your own outlook in life that gives you that. Maybe it's through a different method, I don't know. But while I still don't think I will ever believe in God, I think I'm, one, extremely jealous of people who can have that wholeheartedly, and two, I think I want to make the same transition that my favorite intellectuals are making because I want to have a more fulfilling life. I never really thought that I would be making this kind of video for my channel, but this is what I feel like I had to share no matter what. So if a lot of people resonate with this, I might do some more videos talking about it. But if I don't see you again, I hope you design yourself a fulfilling day, but also a fulfilling life.